fellow Berlin enthusiasts. Welcome to the Green Me Berlin podcast. This is where I go out and chat to Berlin's coolest creators, founders, and free spirits of all those unique eco-minded projects in the capital. I do my very best to extract their stories, secrets, and passions to help you get lots and lots of inspiration of what you can do and experience in this magical city, and how we can all shake the world a little bit. Super glad to have you with me on this journey. Now let's go green in this urban jungle. And remember, always be prepared to be amazed.
Hey fellow changemaker, the wait is over. After a little summer break, we're back with a brand new episode and I'm dying to dive into it with you guys. I'm really sure that it's going to switch on your inner light and believe in the good people in this world. What do you think? How can something so simple as a tiny sun-shaped solar lamp impact the lives of billions of people? Why can micro-entrepreneurship in sub-Saharan Africa be much more powerful than financial aid? How can any one of us leverage the connections we already have to be part of something that matters? And how can we keep up our flame of motivation when things get tough? That's just a mini preview of all the inspiration bombs Felix drops in this episode. I'm extremely proud to be able to present you another Berlin-based certified B-Corp with a fascinating story. If you haven't heard of it yet, Little Sun is a social business spreading clean, affordable solar energy around the globe. Now, just a couple of mind-blowing numbers to get you into the scene. Since Little Sun started in 2012, it has sold over 660,000 lamps worldwide. It changed over 1.6 million lives off the grid. It built up new opportunities for over 600 African entrepreneurs. It saved an insane amount of over $35.5 million on energy expenses in off-grid households, and it reduced over 130,000 tons of CO2 emissions. Now, that was in December 2017, so their impact has been growing even bigger since. Little Sun has also won a competition by the United Nations Development Programme for access to clean energy in Senegal, launched the Little Sun Foundation, and an image that can hardly be topped in beauty, brought together artists, musicians, and activists in New York in the eve of COP23 to urge policymakers and political leaders to join the fight for climate action in the March to Paris. Imagine 2,800 people holding up little suns, creating a collective work of art that stands for a solar-powered sunrise. Goosebumps. Now, I've been sitting down with Felix, and it's been incredible to talk to him. He has such a bright personality, is full of integrity, radiates genuine excitement for the opportunities we have, and adds exactly the right dose of humor to things, which I find is so important to really move the needle forward and tackle the big problems out there. Plus, he's a loving dad and shares so many personal and emotional insights about his journey. Felix also mentions heaps of other great impact projects and gives some big shout outs to you guys, the listeners, including burning questions that maybe some of you could help him answer in the end. So make sure to listen carefully and check out the show notes. Honestly, sometimes I feel really overwhelmed to be able to speak to people like Felix and share their stories with some more compassionate and purpose-driven people like you. Now, just a quick moment to remind you that you can sign up to our newsletter at greenmeberlin.com/newsletter to not miss any future episodes. But now, without any further ado, get ready for lots of shining energy and light bulb moments with Felix Halbachs from Little Sun. Hi Felix, thanks so much for being on the show today. I feel extremely humble and honored that you're really taking time out for us. And I was at Tech Open Air actually a couple of weeks ago, and I was super happy because there's more and more social business leaders represented there, apart from like the usual tech giants and everything. And then I stumbled upon some really cool solar art installations. They were set up by the people over at the Beam magazine. And I discovered that it's connected to Little Sun. And this was a sign for me because, I know you guys for like quite a while already. I love you. I love what you do. And this was the sign, okay, now it's the time. I have to make this happen and get you on the podcast now. And here we are. And Your idea of filling the world with light tackles such an important issue that many people don't think about. And there's actually a lot of things that I want to touch upon, so we better get started.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. I'm very excited. It's always fantastic to join. And, shouts out to Abu and the team at the Beam for somehow making this happen for us. That's always great. We're based and built on collaboration and doing things together. And so I think that's, it's kind of the perfect opener. Why are we here together now? Well, because of the team at the Beam. That's kind of the perfect starting point to talk about energy, to talk about access, to talk about doing something together in the world.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, I like the collaboration part and getting all people together and connecting people who all do something passionate and something impactful. That's absolutely something that I really love as well, and that I really stand for as well. But actually, really, since it all started with Little Sun in 2012, from the idea from an artist and an engineer, it really has turned into a global social business, a certified B-Corp. You've changed over 1 million lives in rural parts of Africa through the power of the sun, and that's something that we actually all have in common and all have access to. And you empower tons of consumers to really easily make a difference. And you started a Little Sun Foundation, you appeared in lots of major media, you won many important awards and prizes, and with all those amazing achievements I just mentioned, what's something that makes you feel most excited at the moment?
I think the most exciting for me is that we're actually here and doing this. And, all achievements are fantastic, and we're so happy about the great support that we've really rallied. We're so happy about having connected people in Germany to people in Ethiopia, basically people across the world in this idea of a more sustainable energy and future. And still, what we could basically say is that we've just only touched the beginning of what needs to be done. So we're super excited about having the opportunity to continue. We've had incredible support from the art community, founded out of Olafur Eliasson's studio, with core museums joining us in the beginning in this idea of the social entrepreneurship. We developed basically our whole original idea together with Tate Modern at the London Olympics in 2012. Wow. And it was all about, asking how we, coming from the arts, from engineering, could have an impact in the world together with whom? Well, with the people we know. So we go to a museum as a first step. And then in the museum, we figure out, we want to work in entrepreneurship. So who do we know who knows something about last mile entrepreneurship in sub-Saharan Africa, which was our original focal area. And we met some great people from the NGO Plan International who were working on literally micro-entrepreneurship projects, livelihood projects in a number of countries. And so together with Tate Modern, with a budget from the London Olympics Art Committee, and with these great teams from Plan in 3 countries, in Kenya, Ethiopia, and Zimbabwe, we started this micro-entrepreneurship idea. We sold the lamps at a higher price at Tate's museum shop, and we brought them into subsidized distribution in the last mile in 3 countries. And, it was obviously at the time a completely crazy idea. We had no clue what we were doing. We were happily naive. And so was everyone else in this process. And I'm not actually saying that to be deprecatory to ourselves or anyone else. Of course, we had a great idea of what we were doing, and there are opportunities, but the reality is we didn't really know what it entailed. And the fact for me is that I'm an architect by training, so I come from this background in architecture. I've worked for 13 years now with Olafur in his studio, so art, architecture, space. But it's always about perception. It's always about connecting people. In a way, also there about creating these spaces for meetings, these spaces for doing things. And in a way, Little Sun is like this gigantic architecture, a social business, a nonprofit, trying to figure out how we can have an impact and shape a better future.
Wow, that's awesome. There are so many points in there already that I'm gonna try to dissect a little bit as we go. But yeah, I mean, the story really, as you say, an architect, an artist, and an engineer, just really interdisciplinary team kind of coming together and trying to make an impact is really, really cool. Essentially, the tangible products of Little Sun, of course, is producing and selling beautiful little portable solar lamps. And I really love your products, I already said, and I have given little Sun away as a gift, like on really several occasions. And the first reaction is always like people look a bit puzzled why I'm giving them this lamp, but then they hear the story and they're actually super excited, because there's of course so much more behind it than just a nice and beautiful lamp. And for the listeners out there who don't know you yet and wonder how a tiny lamp can actually have a big impact, could you just, like, in a very compact way, shed light on this?
So there is a huge issue in the world. Some of us experience it basically never, some every day. About 1.1 billion people in the world do not have access to sustainable or any form of electricity, really, and live off or outside of the electrical grids as we know them. So what is a reality for you and me that you have charged your phone and your computer today through a wall socket that basically always has electricity? I think we have an average of power failures in Berlin of 12 I think, minutes per year. My reality in the past 30 years, I have not experienced a power cut in Berlin. On the other side of the world, in other places, 1.1 billion people never have a socket, period. Probably the same amount or a larger amount even have a socket that occasionally works, sometimes doesn't, many times doesn't, sometimes for hours on end. And the reality is that means that every opportunity you have in life is really challenged, seriously challenged. The United Nations in their Sustainable Development Goals have defined SDG number 7 as sustainable energy access for all. And because it's a developmental need, it's not just an environmental one that it should be sustainable, which is, the second part of that story. The basic premise first is you need energy to thrive. You need energy to be safe. You need energy to be healthy. You need energy so your kids can live and study. It should be a basic human right. And we found out that, we started in Ethiopia. And just in Ethiopia, there are 100 million people, 20 million school kids in primary schools, 16 million school kids in Ethiopia don't have access to energy. That's the equivalent of 3 times the entire population of Denmark, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
So that's where we come from. We come from this energy access question, this actual need for energy.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's something I think, as you just said, for us, it's just so normal. We just plug in our phone, we just do all these things. And if people think about sustainability, they first think about climate change and is a bigger thing and environmental issues. But this is just really something that we have to also be aware of. And I love that you actually tackle this in a really positive and really playful, playful way, which is something I believe in. Like, sustainability shouldn't always have this dark image, and really actually also uplift people. So what was actually the way or the reason that you all together decided to tackle exactly this? Like, how did you actually get aware of this?
So we had some relationships with especially a few friends in Ethiopia. That is one part of the reason for the project. Another part was that the other co-founder, Frederick, had been working on a solar-powered airplane, a rather complex project, not the big Picard project, but a really nice one, Solar Flight. You should, check that. That's
oh my God,
as well.
That is a really big one.
Passenger-carrying solar-powered planes, small but very nice. And but that's hugely expensive, really difficult to fund, and somehow also complicated. But the technology evolved rapidly, and so he had this idea that you could do a lot with solar. Olafur, on the other hand, has always had the idea in his art, you can do a lot with light. And somehow they were sitting together and came to this conclusion: maybe we could make a solar lamp that is actually cheap enough so it could really go places and it could go far. And then we have to hand the actual design success to a few people we worked with and talked to in Ethiopia. So our first prototype was a little black box. We kind of tried to mimic an iPhone, which was the hottest thing at the time. And then it turned out no one of the people we talked to in a small marketplace in a rural place in Ethiopia was really interested in it. And there were a few conversations. Well, what would inspire you? And it turned out color would be interesting. And this little black box thing had a small lanyard, a small little leash that was woven from colorful threads. I think one of Frederick's kids had made that for the prototype. And so someone was looking at this prototype and, do you like the prototype? Yeah, the thing is okay, but the strap is really nice. And why is the strap nice? Well, it's colorful, it's positive.
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh my God, of course, we're not doing something for some poor person, we are doing something together. What do we aspire to? We aspire to positive things. We aspire to having opportunity in life. We aspire to really having something positive in our lives. And that's how the design became what it is now, a really symbolic, positive design.
That's amazing. And I love that you really kind of co-designed that also with the people, like really involved the communities who, of course, should actually then eventually use it. And it's also really nice and really important, this approach of, instead of going there and telling people off and preaching kind of as a white man, hey, don't use your kerosene lamps, which are also pretty toxic.
Frequently, yes. No one likes those though, so it's an easy sale to make to change from kerosene to solar. So literally, no one has this kind of,
Okay, and I think also that it sparks really people's emotion. It's a piece of art, and art connects all of us on an emotional level. It's positive, and this lighting up the world is really something that I really, really connect with. How long did it actually take since the idea was in your minds until it then really took off?
I think we had the first conversations about the idea around about in 2010. And then in 2011, it became more specific, and we thought this could be an interesting thing to pursue. In 2012, then, with the opportunity of the London Olympics and Tate Modern's kind of joining that idea, we said, okay, now we're actually going. And then quite closely after the launch, that was in summer, I think in June of 2012, we understood that this is a bigger project. Either we actually do it, or it's just a one-off, one-time exhibition thing. And so at the end of 2012, we founded the Little Sun Company, a social business. And we spent every day since then really working very, very hard on this. Olafur is the only one who's not involved full-time. He still has his art practice. Frederick, the other founder, is a full-time team member of Little Sun as well. I stopped everything else I was doing in Olafur's studio, I think in 2013. So we really started hiring a few people. We got the first great partner on board, Bloomberg Philanthropies, Mike Bloomberg's foundation in New York, former New York mayor, great guy, fantastic, and he loved the vision. And we understood, I think later than he did, that what he really liked and loved about us is exactly the fact that we are stepping from being, a first stage energy access product to a global idea and thought, and something that could shape into actually changing opinion and something that really is a symbol as much as it is a sustainable energy tool.
Totally. And it's something, what I think is also really good and really powerful is that it's something that people can grasp. Now, it's sometimes energy topics are super abstract. Normally, I always say that on Green Me there's no energy topics, but this one is a different one.
And it is, and that's and interestingly, you have, and now I'll explain this because I'm showing it, which you guys can't see. I have a little sun in my hand. It's shaped like a small yellow sunflower, or like the Ethiopian mescal flower, which is a national flower there. That was one inspiration.
Right.
And if you want to explain solar energy to a small kid anywhere in the world, be that here in Germany in the Kita, or in Ethiopia in a rural area in the Kita, well, it's a small sun, right? So it looks like a small sun. You can pull it down from the sky. So now I'm just kind of taking it from the sky and drawing it to me, and I can hold it and I can feel powerful and resourceful. And you can explain to a kid, well, look, you turn it around, you put the big sun into the back, that's where the solar panel is, and then you have your own little sun with you. You are part of the sun. And this, this little symbol that it is as much an educational tool as it is a positive symbol. It's something you see really well on pictures when people wave it. That has led people, even at the climate conference in Marrakesh, the delegates got one of these courtesy of the French Ministry of Energy, and then waved them and kind of signaled that they want to do something positive together. And that holds true for literally everyone in our little global community.
That's so, so beautiful. And as you say now already, with kids also, getting kids excited, getting kids and like future generations excited and showing them what is it actually all about. It's pretty amazing.
And what you said, this something palpable, energy is abstract. We all use it, we don't really notice.
Yeah.
What we in German call the Energiewende, switching to renewables, it's fantastic, but it's not very palpable. I know I kind of buy more sustainable electricity than less sustainable one, so my energy provider is somehow sustainable, but it's very difficult to feel emotionally connected to that. It's very difficult to explain it to my child at home that our energy is better than some other energy. Well, what does that actually mean?
Totally.
And making something palpable, something you can touch, a vehicle to carry that energy, has been a really, really strong part of what we do. And we would say that there is an energy ladder that we all try to climb up. And, if you are using a kerosene lamp because you don't have any other way of lighting your home, that's really literally under the energy ladder. And this small little sun, that's only the first step. Everyone in sub-Saharan Africa whom we talk to, at least, would also like to have a switch on the wall and a light and a fan and a TV, blah, blah, and everything. So I think this aspiration of giving a different form of power, a palpable form, a shape, is really, really strong. And we want to be positive, exactly. We don't want to be negative. It's not about what you cannot do. It's about what we can do. Yeah. How does energy feel? How does it feel to be powerful? And then we realize, goodness gracious, we're all the same. Kid in rural Ethiopia wants the same thing as the kid in Berlin.
Absolutely. I love this. It's like, I always say this, that we're just already connected. Everything in this world is connected and everyone is kind of actually really the same. And I'm personally also always believing into this empowerment model, like empowering the people to actually be part of it and do something. How is it actually, we already touched upon how it's actually taken on by the communities over in Africa and in those remote regions. Also how do you approach this and how do the lamps actually get to the people?
We've been working with a micro-entrepreneurship model for last mile distribution. So we find great and, fantastic partners in the countries where we work.
Right.
And together with them, we try to equip what we then call small entrepreneurs to somehow distribute and resell these units in their communities. We run a subsidy model. We sell the units at a slightly higher price here in Germany, the US, other places, to be able to subsidize the delivery in off-grid areas.
It's kind of a one-for-one model, right?
It's a one-for-one model, but it's usually not one sold here means one is given to someone, but one goes into entrepreneurship, and we support the entrepreneurs. Right. In the long term, we believe that this will generate a scalable model where, you could call it seed capital goes towards the micro distribution. We also, though, because the world obviously is a complicated place, and we understand it's not just black or white, but there are many shades in between. We also established a nonprofit, Little Sun Foundation, German association. And there we do the more classic fundraising. You give us money, we give a lamp to a school kid. So we somehow do both, and we understand that there is a need and a reasoning behind both. I just got an SMS from someone who had been to a Rohingya camp in Bangladesh, and it's devastating. 900,000 people. You're not going to set up entrepreneurship structures there. So if somehow with the UN's IOM, International Agency for Migration, we can figure out how to get lamps there, that would be fantastic, right? And I would be super happy to have those lamps donated, and that's perfectly cool. But in areas where there is the entrepreneurship opportunity and where you can build something, then what we have realized is that if you work with people in the local place, it's a completely different form of collaboration. We have actual collaborators, partners in different countries. There's Borema in Burkina Faso, who has this fantastic little network of micro-entrepreneurs he's servicing. He does all kinds of things among being a Little Sun distributor and importer into the country. He has a chicken farm. He does Excel classes. I have no clue why. But it's really interesting. And so we meet these great people, which we wouldn't meet if we were just going for a traditional NGO pathway.
Totally.
But it has a lot to do with the business. And that is, it's a feeling of mutual empowerment, I think.
Yeah, I think that too. And really strengthen local communities, really like from the inside by you create local jobs, you create local profits, and you have all those partnerships and young people engaged there, and then really empower them actually to shape their own future in a way. And the whole social entrepreneurship versus nonprofit or donation-based charity is really a topic I love to geek out on lately and I've learned more about. What was like the intrinsic reason? Maybe you already touched upon that a little bit now, but what made you straight away say, okay, we're going to sell those lamps to the people as opposed to giving them as a donation? Was it pretty much what you just said? Or?
Well, basically, it was also quite pragmatic in the beginning. So we had a small budget at the exhibition that allowed us to begin. And at the time, we kind of thought, well, how do we maximize the impact of this small budget? And we figured, well, if we resell the units on both sides, maybe we can produce more. And so, 5,000 lamps went to Zimbabwe to a local team, fantastic, great group. Edwin, Idios, Melody, a bunch of girls and guys who have been doing fantastic work since 2012. And these 5,000 lamps, I think they've by now resold 70,000 units. Mm-hmm. These 5,000 somehow turned into 70,000. We've had additional subsidies from us and others, but it would never have been 70,000 if we had just donated 5,000. That would have been the end of it. And that, I think, that's the best explanation why.
Mm-hmm. Totally. I love that. I mean, it's really, and I think we're living also, it's a time now where people, there's so much consumer awareness as well, and like a lot of people want to make a difference, and they also happy to spend money on that and exchange this in a way. And I mean, I don't know, there's like all these books of Muhammad Yunus, and I don't know, I just recently read the B-Corp handbook, and they always said something that I really liked, and it says that social business will be the default corporate structure of the future. Pam. Do you see that in a similar way? I mean, I'm always super positive and really believe in optimism as a driver for change as well.
I would love to believe it. I think you need to believe it to push that mission.
Yeah.
So to a certain extent, I do. And we're also doing what we do because we believe, against all odds, you could sometimes argue. I think the political landscape has changed in a somewhat, it was to me somewhat surprising and devastating way in the past 2-3 years, which makes it more difficult to believe in humankind's general, target of making things better. But I still think it's the best solution that I can think of right now.
Yeah.
It's hard to say. I think what I do believe in is it's worth pushing for it.
Yeah.
And that I think for sure. And you can see there is, and this is why B-Corp is interesting, there is a success potential even to get large companies into it. And this is a lot to do with social media and public perception and public authorship. 15 years ago, to write an article about a company, you had to be in the press or in the media. Mm-hmm. Now anybody can do it on Facebook in 2 minutes. And the companies need to react to that. So suddenly being good becomes a currency. Mm-hmm. And that I think is fantastic. And I would share that belief with the whole Yunus environment and the B-Corp group and hopefully many others. There are really so many fantastic little entities working around.
Exactly.
So yes, I think we have to push for it together. Everybody listening to this, to just figure out how you can buy things from the people who want to make a positive difference. It's your choice, really.
Exactly. Absolutely. We have so much power on all levels, be on the consumer level where we spend our money, but also everyone can start something as well. And so many things have an impact. And as you just said, there are like lots of fantastic projects out there already just in Berlin. What do you think, like being in the city, like starting basically Little Sun from here, I don't know, did that support you in a way? Did you think this was a great place to actually start it? And yeah.
Well, we were I'm actually from Berlin, so I think Berlin is the best place anyway.
Awesome.
but apart from that, which is, I could say, slightly biased and more emotional than anything else.
That's great.
the Olafur's art studio has been in Berlin since the 90s. So there is, and obviously that's linked to a large creative community. Mm-hmm. Berlin has, in my experience, had the space and room to do things in a different way. It's never been the financial hub of Germany or any financial hub for that matter. So I think Berlin is the right place to do things. I've experienced Berlin as a fantastic place to work out of. Mm-hmm. As coming from Berlin, you're well received in many parts of the world. Yeah. And this goes east, west, north, and south, really. And people tend to feel that something inspiring could be coming from here. So they trust, when we say we are inspiring, they trust us based on that. But of course, the reality is our success is not just in Berlin. Our success is in all the places and with all the great people with whom we work. It's with Nabil in Ethiopia, it's with Burema, who I mentioned in Burkina, and with so many others from the Bloomberg team in New York that believed in this kind of trade, not aid, social business idea, on to everyone else who has supported us since.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, like now looking back at actually Ethiopia or generally Africa, where you actually really have this big impact. What was maybe one experience that you had there, or like one moment that really stuck with you, like something that really touched your heart?
I have one experience, and it's linked between somewhere in Africa and here, and it's something that recurred many times in Africa. So I was in so many different settings and talked to people, and usually then it was a woman, a mother, who would say, "You don't have to explain your lamp any further. My child coughs every day from sitting next to a kerosene lamp. I want to have one. How can we bring more to my community?" And somehow specifically that happened once at a coffee conference in rural Rwanda with some West Rwandan small stakeholder coffee farmers brought together around a fair trade coffee initiative. And I remember it specifically there because I went up on a podium to explain Little Sun. And this one woman just kind of raised her hand after like 30 seconds of my presentation. I was starting to go, solar, it's so great, you should. And she just raised her hand and said, "You don't have to explain this to us. We all know. What do we do to get these lamps to our community?" And that was outstanding. And I felt that I really emotionally connected to her story. And then 2 years later, I had a son. And my son lives with me here in Berlin. In his first winter, he somehow contracted a special form of bronchitis, an obstructive bronchitis. So this little baby was rattling when he breathed. And I was sitting at home one night with this little baby in my arm with a fever. And suddenly I was like, oh my God, now I understand what this woman was telling me. Because for the first time, I actually felt how it feels to have a kid that has a respiratory problem. And my reality is quite simple. I live next to a hospital. I have 2 hospitals with child emergency wards within 10 minutes driving time. If here in Berlin, I call an ambulance and tell them my infant is not breathing, I will have a mobile hospital at my doorstep in 3 to 4 minutes, and it will be better equipped than most hospitals in all of Ethiopia. That's my reality. So my kid coughing, I felt it was terrible, but it was not a problem. Not at all. I went to the doctor 20 times that winter. In the end, the sickness just went away. My kid has never been sick since, or maybe once, right? So he's good. He's 3 years old now. All fantastic. That's my life. And it was interesting to me because in the moment I realized with my child coughing how my perception of the old conversations I had had changed. It was really astounding and astonishing. That's when we created our nonprofit entity afterwards.
Right.
I was like, okay, we cannot wait for business to do it all. It's one thing to feel connected to someone's story, but to all those of you who have kids out there, you will know what this means. If someone tells you their kid is dying because, of lung problems, it just feels different to you than to anyone who doesn't have children. And so that's kind of that's really, I think that was my most, the personal experience I noted most. That's change in perspective, which was like, oh, goodness gracious.
Wow, yeah, that's a really touching story. Even I don't have kids, but I can kind of feel your emotion through that. So yeah, this is a super emotional, personal story. How do you actually get people and your consumers like over here who ideally buy the lamps, like how do you get them emotionally engaged?
Well, we try to be authentic and we try to, as you can tell from me, talk a lot.
I love that.
So it's occasionally challenging to get our kind of trade not aid narrative into a very short phrase. There are other projects out there who do this buy one, give one model. And we can probably feel it's an easier pitch to make to people. But if we tell our longer story and people actually listen for the whole duration of a few minutes, then they really love our kind of approach. And so what we do by now is we somehow tailor make our little message to the occasion. If we get a lot of time, we tell a longer story about entrepreneurship and what we want to do. If it's a shorter time, we just say, just give a lamp. And both actually have their validity, I think. And then the people who just give a lamp, then we get to talk to them again too. So somehow then we get them into the network and we can start the conversation and bring it out. But what I found, the absolute best way to tell our story has been for someone to have a lamp. It's super simple.
Yeah.
If someone has one of these, they experience it, they feel the story, they share it. And the people who have a lamp and tell someone else about it, they do a much better job than I do. Literally.
Yeah, true. As I said, that's what usually happens when I give it away, like as a gift. Of course, you're not just gonna give the lamp. You're gonna read up a little bit. How do I actually tell the person that I actually gave them something really special? And it's awesome, I think, that you talk a lot because this needs a great story and a lot of engaging people. But of course, this is not only possible in a small team on a small scale. And we've been touching on the power of collaboration a few times already. And I know that there's quite a lot going on. And this, I think it's really something that you also count on, right?
Absolutely. So we are a small team. We do not have a lot of money or a lot of power. We have no resources in certain areas, and we have a lot of resources in one area, and that is, as we feel, in our creativity and in our emotion. Mm-hmm. And this is what other people connect to. And these can be individuals, these can be companies. Basically, we spend our time trying to convince everybody to work with us because we're aspiring to a 2030 goal of reducing emissions in the world and providing sustainable energy to all.
Yeah.
And clearly that needs public-private partnership, governments, corporates, individuals. It needs all of us to change habits. It needs all of us to focus on where we want to go and how we want to be in this world.
Exactly.
And absolutely. So we've talked different companies into working with us.
You just have a really big one, actually.
Yeah, we're starting to work with IKEA.
Yeah.
Who are they're huge. We are tiny, so it's a very interesting constellation. They have a history of bringing affordable design to almost everyone. Most people I know in the global north have some kind of a relationship to IKEA, it's a love or hate relationship. So most people have bought things. You go to their store and you wonder how in the world they can produce a table that they can sell to you for €7. Mm-hmm. And you read the news on them and you see that they want to ban plastics from their single-use plastics from their stores within the next few years, and think, wow, if they do that, it actually makes a huge difference. They're not just one store; they have I don't know how many stores, hundreds. So what's interesting to us is because delivering energy to 1.1 billion people, you need to understand scale. You need to really, really have a good idea of how to scale the availability of great solutions. Now, at the smaller end, these are design solutions like our lamps. So who is the best in delivering affordable design? Well, in my book, that's probably IKEA, warranting quality and making it really good. So we've just started, let's say, a project, a venture, hopefully a great journey with the IKEA team.
What is exactly going to happen? Like they are selling the lamps in the IKEA stores?
They will not sell our lamps. We're looking at designing something for and with them, which may be products that somehow are in the same area as our little son. We actually don't know yet. So I'm not being coy when I'm not saying it.
Yeah, right.
But we announced this to the press, I think, 3 weeks ago at IKEA's Democratic Design Day. They have one press launch every year where they announce new collaborations. Mm-hmm. And a year later, the people come back and tell what the collaboration will actually be.
Right.
So we have the first real meeting in September. Mm-hmm. And what we will obviously work on is, if anyone from IKEA here is, be ready. We're going to try to pull, of course, as much as we can of knowledge, of capabilities, of capacity towards things we could use in our areas of impact.
Yeah.
And whereas IKEA has, I think, probably 3 missions in this, I would assume. They want to probably create products they can sell. I mean, if they wouldn't, I would be surprised. They wouldn't be great. They wouldn't be a great company if they didn't have that ambition. I think they want to tell the sustainability story, which we are highly interested in. That's one part of our targets, is really to bring the story out. And a third part, I think, is that they're actually also interested in having a second round impact somewhere outside of their structure. And that's what we'll work on. So I hope that in a year's time, we'll have a really exciting story to share, not just about sustainable products, but about doing something together. And if we can then claim that we reeled one of the biggest international design, development and delivery entities into working in off-grid areas with us, that would be huge and fantastic.
Absolutely, and we're definitely going to follow up on that, and I'm excited what's going to happen. I mean, generally, I'm also really big advocate for getting the big players on board, because we really need them also to make a change on a really large and global scale. Talking about that plastic thing, actually, that you just mentioned with IKEA, I also read that or heard that you're also trying, because I mean, obviously the original lamp, it does have plastic. Now there's this big, of course, everyone wants to try to reduce plastic. Is that something that you also look at? And probably also maybe with IKEA, even, who knows?
Absolutely, absolutely. So for one, well, luckily ours is not a single-use plastic. So it's not in the, it's not the ones that are immediately thrown into the ocean. And if you really look at it technically speaking, the battery disposal is more of a challenge than the plastic disposal in our units. But generally speaking, it's quite important that these lamps don't end up in a landfill.
Yeah.
And it's more important, as I said, for the battery, but it's also relevant for the plastic. Our footprint in terms of plastic is actually quite good if you consider that a kerosene lamp burns, 20 to 50 milligrams of oil every day.
Yeah.
And we have, I think, 40 grams of plastic in this. And you could argue that's similar to 40 grams of oil with some treatment, obviously. 5-year runtime. So we're actually already quite good on the oil savings versus oil expenditure list here. But still, we would love to be better, obviously. Having a material that after 5 years suddenly becomes biodegradable would be great.
Yeah, exactly.
We've talked to people who collect ocean plastic. Great project, Parlay for the Ocean. Shouts out to Cyril and his crew.
Parlay for the Ocean.
Yes, do you know about them?
I think I heard about them.
They're really cool. And so we've worked with them to see if the plastic that they harvest could work in our product, and it doesn't yet, but maybe we'll get there. Obviously, IKEA has a great material sciences department, so we are very excited to bring that team into understanding what we could do together with us. As we are so small, we have to rely on other people. Yeah. We talk to universities, we talk to all kinds of researchers. I think there are, hopefully in the next few years, there will be so many things on both batteries and plastics that will take us further. And we just, we
you just have to start somewhere.
That's out there.
Yeah.
I think in terms of awareness building, it's also quite important. So this idea of the ocean plastic is probably more a statement than it is really something that absolutely changes the waste game immediately. But you can also tell, a few years ago, Parlay were the only ocean plastics people I knew. And so many have sprung up.
There's a lot, yeah. I actually wear a bracelet from an organization they called 4Ocean, and they actually collect the plastic waste and then make like some cool little jewelries and stuff out of it. Yeah, and there's so much actually happening in this movement. It's true. Like EcoAlf is also now here, the store in Berlin, taking the plastic from the oceans, making clothes out of it. And I think there's the scarcity conversation in sustainability, which of course now we have scarce resources, but on the other hand, we also have so much already there, and then seeing what we can make out of that. So that's something really exciting, and I'm excited.
And this leads to kind of, the cradle to cradle principle, life cycle discussions, and understanding where the whole value chain of a product and the whole lifespan of a product actually leaves the whole thing in the end. Yeah,
totally. What is keeping you inspired and motivated? Do you have like one tool or something that you always kind of use? Like some people use gratitude, or I don't know, like this.
It's hard to say. I think I'm generally inspired by the fact that we somehow get this huge opportunity to do something great. The fact that we can speak here about this now. The fact that someone is listening to this, you listener out there, you are actually hearing this story and you're hopefully inspired by it and interested. That is a great inspiration to me. The fact that this morning I started the day trying to figure out how in the world we get some customs documents to Ethiopia, which is completely not my area of work, but somehow it popped in my direction. And the fact that we have a small but fantastic team who share this mission and who believe in it. I think that inspires me greatly. And all the people I've met through the project. That really truly, it's opened a whole new world to work in social business, sustainability, impact, even also in the NGO world. Just really, really inspiring people who have dedicated their lives to making the world a better place. And that's fantastic. I came from a good place, art, architecture, already fantastic people there. But combining the two has been really extraordinary.
Amazing. And there's a lot of people out there actually, and the numbers are growing, which is really something that always drives me and inspires me. Quickly before we dive into the final section, where can people best get in touch with you, your stories, and support your mission and Little Sun?
You can find us as a company on littlesun.com, and as our foundation, we're littlesunfoundation.org. You can find us as I Love Little Sun, I think, on Facebook, or just test for Little Sun there. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter. We are rather tiny on social media, so if all of you click on us, then we will be a bit bigger.
Awesome.
You can obviously write to us. You can buy lamps anywhere in our online shop, depending on where you are in the world. Usually we are in museum shops, in design places. We're usually in these smaller outlets because we're not a high profit product. So any big retail chain would probably not list us because they actually can't. But any small retailer who has an interest in what they're doing, they can, even though they don't make a lot of money, they put most of the money back to the project.
Yeah.
But they do it because they share this belief. So you can find us occasionally. Yeah. The best idea would be if you go to Ethiopia and buy some lamps from our distributor Nabil there, because the country really needs hard currency. So it's worth a visit. New Prime Minister, great place. You should for sure go.
All right, I keep that in mind. I'll use the solar plane of Frederick to go.
Maybe you should go before that. That may take a while.
All right, now our final section. I don't want to stretch your time out too much longer. Just 4 questions that I always basically ask all of my interview guests is, since you went on this path with Little Sun, what was your biggest learning? Like something that you could, for example, pass on to your kids if you could teach them one only thing.
I do think that the world is actually a very small place and that we are all connected. We are all connected, we share the same aspirations, we're living on the same planet together and we need to make it work.
Yeah, exactly. I totally sign it. Everyone who's been on tour with me ever, this is always something along these lines is something how I started. Like everything is connected in this world and I totally sign that one. Now, if you suddenly had superpowers and could change one thing in the world in the next 24 hours, what would that be?
I don't exactly know how, but I would try to get rid of populism. If I read the news every day, it seems to be very high on the agenda of things that really annoy the heck out of me. Yeah. And that just make our world a worse place.
All right.
Just think of what's happening in Germany, in the US, and in many places where we're actually living good and safe lives. I mean, literally, we don't have trouble finding a meal every day. We're actually really, really well off.
Totally.
And then we just somehow get stuck in this kind of very, very odd struggle against ourselves. And it need not be. So, absolutely. Superpower, just get people happily together.
Yeah.
It's again about being together. It's all about togetherness.
Absolutely. What question should I have asked you but didn't?
That's a very good question. I never asked you, how are you?
I'm pretty good. I'm feeling, especially right now, good that we do it at the end, but no, already before, I'm like generally very inspired by all the things that you do. I'm really inspired by everyone that I get the chance to talk to actually through that podcast or even through the things that we do with Green Me, talking to amazing social entrepreneurs or be it from grassroots organizations to bigger social startups. That's just, you just see how much is actually happening. It's like a huge driver and it really makes me jump out of bed every morning.
That's similar for me. Okay, now I do have a question.
Yeah.
A question that you could ask me. And the question would be, how could people join us? And we kind of already touched it on where you would find us. But I think one interesting question I have for the audience, and this is something that's been on our mind here quite a lot, is how can we take what we have, Little Sun as a story, Little Sun as a product, Little Sun as an NGO, a nonprofit, and make it an actual movement? So what call to action could we put out there to really embody what the lamp individually always does? Namely, make people change their perspective and maybe make them change their habit as well. What kind of call could we put out there? And this is to everyone here listening. Just send us an email or a note on social media. If you have an idea for some kind of a campaign that can be executed with no budget, but would really touch many, many people, how could we make holding hands with the sun, something that we all do, where we all connect on? How do we get it from me to you and from you to the next person and then on and on and on so that we can actually lobby for a cleaner energy world, for a better tomorrow together? If you have ideas, I think that would be my main thing. If you have ideas, send us a note and connect on social media, make a little video, take a picture, do a dance, sing a song. I don't really know what it is. It literally, I don't have the answer. Yeah. And I think there is something in our story that is bigger and that remains to be told. And we just can't do it alone. We need you to do it.
Awesome. So you guys out there, you heard it. This is your chance actually to get active, to help shaping a beautiful, beautiful project. So just get in touch. I throw all the contacts obviously into the show notes and
post pictures on Instagram of sunrises, sunsets, of anything you feel is energy, anything you feel is positive. Hashtag us, tag us, what else could you do? Hashtag Tata. Well, just kind of, I'm obviously not a millennial. Just, make sure it actually arrives and share it. And I think that this idea of sharing and doing something together and being stronger and more powerful together.
Absolutely.
That's my last one.
That's amazing. I mean, that's already actually nearly the final statement. But yeah, I mean, maybe you have something else. If you could pass on one message to the Green Me community apart from that, what would it be?
Yes. Well, I think the fact that you're listening to this is already a sign that you are on the right track and on the right pathway. And just we need more of us, more people who believe in shaping their world, more people who believe that there is a clean energy future. More people who believe that it makes a difference and that your choice does matter. The world is yours to shape. Every time you see something, you're actually projecting your culture, your views, your perception on it. And that is the reality. Nothing is set and out there. You always have a chance of influencing it somehow. That may not seem like it, and I don't believe in that every day when I wake up, but I do try to end my days believing that that is the opportunity we have.
That was so powerful. Felix, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for sharing all these amazing stories, all your really also really personal thoughts and beliefs. I totally believe in everything that you guys are doing, and keep rocking, keep changing the world.
Thank you very much. And you guys can't see this, I'm doing a sun dance right now. I'll spare you the singing.
Oh yes. We are living in such exciting times where so much is possible. So please don't let the naysayers get you down. Promise you, good change is near and we can all be part of it. Now here are a few final shoutouts before you leave. 1. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to hop over to iTunes and leave us a short review. As you know, your feedback is hugely important to help us make the show better and inspire more people that lots of good things are happening and how to connect with the coolest eco-minded projects out there. Thanks so much for supporting us. 2. If you're in Berlin and looking for an alternative way to explore the city while meeting some beautiful sustainable businesses and the people behind them, join one of our Green Me Kiez tours. We've got public tours running every second Saturday through to the end of September, so check out our next dates on greenmeberlin.com/tours and join us. We'll be super cool to have you. Or if you want to jump up to the next level, come on one of our circular economy tours. The next date is August 29th and you'll find all the details on circulareconomytours.com. 3. If you're a foodie and prefer to explore on your own, make sure to check out our huge vegan brunch guide featuring our favorite plant-based havens and fill your bellies with some vibrant, nourishing food from nature. Hop on over to greenmeberlin.com and go on their best of guides and click best of vegan brunch. Enjoy! Now I hope your hearts are lit up and you're as excited as we are to shape a more sustainable, happier future for us and for Mother Earth. Go out and soak in some positive future vibes and remember, always be prepared to be amazed.